Ooh, there's a dead deer. That's a buck. That's a buck. I bet that's
pretty big.
Today's August 27th, and we just got done hanging probably like 3 or 4 tree stands today. And actually what I'm doing right now is I'm gonna go out and look around for the buck that he calls Splitz. I got pictures of him the first 2 weeks I put cameras out, which was about 7 weeks ago. And I haven't gotten pictures of him after the first 2 weeks. And Splitz is 5 years old, and I've had pictures of him at 4, 3, 2, and he's one of the only deer I've ever been able to recognize at 1. And so I've had pictures of him 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5, first 2 weeks of July here. I haven't had pictures of him after that, and I've never had him disappear for that long. Maybe he got infected with EHD, and maybe that's why he hasn't shown up on camera. I'd hate for that to be the case, but like I said, it is extremely uncommon for a deer that's 5 years old, that we've had the amount of history we've had with him, to not get a picture of him within the last 5 weeks. I mean, that's just, it's bugging me. It's been bugging me the past, after not getting pictures of him for 2 weeks, I was like, this is weird. So I just can't help but think something's happened. So with the number of dead deer that neighbors are finding, we're gonna go out, we're gonna look some water sources. It would really suck to find them dead, but I just can't get it off my head. We gotta go out, we gotta check this out. So I'm gonna get some boots on. It's gonna be hot, not gonna be fun. There's gonna be a bunch of bugs and stuff, but I just gotta know. I've gotta know what's going on. Oh, gosh, that's nasty. That's nasty. Okay, we luckily did not find anything down by the creek bottoms, but I was on my way back here, just heading back to the shop right now, and actually could smell one. Did a couple loops right here and finally found what was causing the bad smell. And there's a doe right here dead, about 2 rows into the cornfield. I'm not gonna get too close to this one. This one's just awful. I mean, I can't say for certain that one's EHD, being that we're not super close to a water source. EHD definitely doesn't mean that they have to die. I mean, if they're infected with EHD, it does not mean they have to die close to a water source. Most of the time they will. So I guess I should back up and explain what is the EHD. I'm gonna explain it somewhere where it's a little bit more better smelling than this. Holy cow. That's bad. For those of you that don't know, EHD is a viral disease that is transmitted from midges to white-tailed deer. EHD is most common in late summer and early fall, and it's basically prevalent every year, but outbreaks seem to be the worst during drought years. During drought years, water sources shrink, which create warm, shallow, and stagnant pockets of water. These pockets of water are the ideal breeding habitat for the midges that transmit EHD, creating a deadly trap for the deer that then congregate at these water sources. And once a deer is infected, they develop a nasty fever, become dehydrated, and typically die within 2 days. The fever causes the deer's body temp to increase, which then causes the deer to seek a cool area like a water source to cool their bodies. This is why most deer will die close to a water source, and is primarily the reason why we are looking around water sources today. When a deer is infected, they will lose their sense of fear. For example, last year there was an 8-point that I had pictures of all summer, and then a day before the youth season I drove by him. He was standing right next to the road, and he was like 10 yards off the road, and he seemed like he had no sense of security. The next morning, I drove by that same spot, and he was standing out on the other side of the road about 50 yards into the field, and he had no care in the world. He looked at me, he just kept walking, looked back at me, kept walking. Like, you could just tell something was not right with this deer. Well, not surprisingly, I never ended up getting pictures of that buck again, and I'm assuming that he ended up dying on one of the neighboring properties. The worst part about it is that EHD outbreaks can last until we get a hard frost that kills the midges. It's an extremely unfortunate way for these deer to die, and the hardest part is knowing that there's not much we can do to stop it. I am by no means an expert on EHD, so if you're interested in learning more about the disease, I would highly recommend looking at a reputable source online for more information. At the end of the day, I'm pretty okay with what we found. I mean, I don't like finding dead deer, but that doe we just found, not that we're close to a road or anything, I think it could be EHD, but right now, based on not finding any down by the water sources, I think that one's not EHD. But if we end up finding more as we continue to look, I would go back and say that that's actually probably EHD. So We did about half the creek bottoms, and we did one of the 2 ponds that are on this farm, and no signs of deer dead close to a water source. So that's good news. I'll end up coming back here later in the week and we'll end up looking more, but it's gonna get dark now. So, all right, guys, today is Tuesday, August 29th, and I just got off work probably about 2 hours ago. So did Emmy. I'm absolutely miserable from walking these creeks the other day. My legs are just bit to crap. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna check a couple more of these creek bottoms. There's one more pond to check, and then we'll see what happens from there. I texted the neighbors to see if they had any pictures of him yet. They said that they were just getting their cameras out. So maybe, maybe he's summering somewhere else. That's what I'm hoping. But I'm not gonna have my hopes too high because I don't want to be in for a letdown. So in walking some of these creek bottoms, it's kind of a good sign because we haven't found anything yet, or haven't gotten wind of anything, which is pretty good, I would say. Not to say that they couldn't all be piled up somewhere else, but we've been at it for about an hour now, and luckily we haven't found anything. Got some more here to hit yet, but good. It's encouraging so far. No, that one's not this year, obviously. That's a really old one. Oh, I know what buck this is off of. I know exactly what buck that is. Yeah, this makes sense. We have the match set off of this deer from the spring of 2020 and the spring of 2021. And then the fall of 2021, never got pictures of him. Always wondered what happened to him because he had like his growth from what I thought was 2 to 3 and what I think this would have been 4 was substantial, and never knew what happened to him. Well, now we close that book. I'm gonna guess that this is an old EHD deadhead because in that fall of 2021 I actually ended up finding another deer dead up in one of the fields from EHD. Wow, that's really weird that we found him now for how hard we look this farm normally for shed hunting. I can't believe we just found him. I mean, I don't look creek bottoms too hard, but he should have stood out. That's weird. Well, if I'm gonna find a deadhead, I want it to be an old deadhead. I can smell something dead. There's no doubt about it. It's faint right now, but I'm walking this direction. It seems to get stronger as I get closer to the creek. Yeah, there's gotta be something dead around here. Can you smell that yet?
No.
There's some turkey feather. I mean, I got a pretty good smell over here. Oh, you smell that? That's definitely something dead. Oh gosh. It's about getting to that point where you want to gag. That's rotten. Ah, there's the culprit. No way. Oh, that sucks, man. Wow. I think this is a deer that I had pictures of last year, but I just haven't had pictures of him yet this year. I mean, clearly I would recognize this deer with his split 4 right here. I mean, that's totally distinct characteristic, and he's got a nice frame. I really think I know what deer that is from last year. 100% EHD too. if that's the deer I think it is, he was going on 4 this year. I mean, that's the type of deer that could have been a magnum. I hate finding deer, let alone a deer that you have history with. Guess he can take his jawbone here.
Yeah.
I'll take his jawbone and see if we can figure out his age.
Right.
Man, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 points. And you can kind of tell right here, his body isn't that big. It doesn't look that big. They say something about their toes. Like their toes will curl up if they're dead from EHD. I don't know. That's just too bad, man. That's not Splitz. That is not Splitz, but that is definitely not what I wanted to find. The question is no longer, is Splitz dead? The question is, where is he dead? Because after finding this, it's not just the rumor mill of hearing of other people finding dead deer. I mean, this is right here, not too far from where Splitz could be, so. Damn, that sucks. All right, we're making our way down to the last creek bottom here. Probably got a good 400-yard draw here. This is the last one we haven't checked. Just found that one buck. I don't see how Splitz disappears on camera for 5 weeks, being that we had 4 years of history with him. He's like one of the only, like maybe 2 deer in my life that I can think of that I was able to very, very confidently identify when he was 1 year old. Because he had like a little nub on his 1G2 and it just lined up with the timeline with this deer. When I didn't get pictures of him for 2 weeks, I thought, maybe it was just a yearly thing, maybe the crop rotation, but I went back and trended all the pictures I had of him from past years, and that's not the case. I had a lot of pictures of him 2 years ago when corn was in the rotation, and 4 years ago when corn was in the rotation. Ooh, there's a dead deer. Hey, there's a dead one down here.
Dead deer?
Yeah. Right down here. I can see it.
I don't see it yet.
Right there. Down in the creek, definitely. It's got to be an EHD deer. That's a buck. That's a buck. I bet that's.
It's pretty big.
Damn it.
What deer is it?
What?
What deer is it?
That's Splitz. That's Splitz. One of the only deer that we've ever actually wanted to see make it through that has made it through. I mean, these deer are just subject to so many different things. I mean, the deer that have a lot of potential, they just don't make it because they get shot. I mean, everything was coming together with this deer. It was one of the times where everything, you know, the plan was just falling in place perfectly. You know, it looks like he was putting on some mass. Probably would have gotten a little bit more width. You know, it was just super cool. He started off, when he was young, you could just see that he had a nub that he was going to start splitting. The next year he came out and he had splits on both sides. This is off of the buck that I call Splitz. I believe Splitz is 2.5 years old. A lot of good potential with this buck. And then he came out as a 3-year-old and was a very, very nice looking 8-point for a 3-year-old. Very nice looking 8-point. And you know, he actually disappeared for a good section of his time when he was 3, and I thought that he was dead, and then fortunately he came back and was alive. And yes sir, that's who we wanted. That's a 3.5-year-old deer right there. At 4, he was very impressive. He got his splits back, and he totally fulfilled that name of Splitz. Yeah, that's definitely him. Let's go. Holy cow. That is a hog. Oh my gosh. That is a toad. Oh boy. That is by all means extremely impressive. And then this year he showed up, and it looks like he was gonna be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pointer. But he would have had splits only on one side. I mean, that seriously had to be not too long after that last photo I had of him on July 19th. 40 days later, we're sitting here holding him. Yeah, and one thing that I should mention is, I know I'm frustrated and sound spoiled here, but the thing is that this is just part of it, and it's an unfortunate fate. I tell you what, the next time that this happens, where we have a deer that makes it through and we have a plan put into place, it'll just make it that much more rewarding. What kills me though is not necessarily that we didn't get to harvest this deer. What kills me is just knowing that this is how he ended up dying. You know, that kills me. It's an awful way for these deer to die. So we got all his sheds right here. You can see this one right here from when he was 1.5. It's really cool. He had that split right there coming off his G2. And then when we saw this deer the next year, how it had splits on both sides and it looked like a really young deer, it just made perfect sense, and it lined up perfectly that this would be that deer. Then he came out the next year, no splits, but he was a really nice 8. Then at 4, awesome deer. Didn't end up finding the other side, but we know our neighbors did. And the weird thing about splits is we had, on all 4 of these sheds, we only ever found one side off of him, which was really interesting, because you would think one of the years, you know, we'd find both sides, or one of the years maybe we wouldn't find either of the sides, but it just happened to work out that we ended up finding one side each year. So anyways, awesome story. But then this is just what happens, you know, you just can't control these circumstances, and he ends up dying an unfortunate death. But I mean, that's just the name of the game, and you know, there's really nothing I can do about it now. So, but unfortunately, since I've made this video, we found quite a few more deer, and we've heard about quite a few more deer dying in the area. So this is gonna be a tough one to recover from. But there you have it. 4 sheds, 4 years. And then Mr. Deadhead. That'd be the life of Splitz.